Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now for today's video I'm going to be continuing my 60th anniversary series of TV story rankings with a ranking of every 12th Doctor TV story from Deep Breath all the way to Twice Upon a Time. Now obviously it's been like over a year since the 60th anniversary, so the reason why I'm continuing to doing I'm still at it with these, is because I had some technical issues when I tried to do the original version of the 11th Doctor one, so that's last one of these rankings, and it meant that I then had to kind of delay it for a while, and then I completely forgot about it for like over a year, and now here we are, like continuing a series, and I thought it made sense with it being like a week or so until the new series celebrates its 20th anniversary. So yeah, I thought I would kind of finish off the last couple of these to sort of count down to that special occasion. So without any further ado, let's dive right into it, shall we? Right, so here is the tier list we're going to be using for this ranking. Now, just as I said in the 11th Doctor one, it's been quite a while since I last rewatched these stories now, so my memory of some of them might not be, all that great, and so some of my kind of reasoning behind where I'm ranking them, might not be as detailed as perhaps it would have been if I was doing this like right after having rewatched them all. So I do apologise about that. Unfortunately, it just can't be helped, I'm afraid. So yeah, we're going to start off with Series 8, obviously, with Deep Breath. I'm going to put this in good. It's a pretty good, solid start to Capaldi's era. Not really as good as the 11th Hour or Christmas Invasion, I would say, in terms of like Doctor introduction stories or first stories for a new Doctor. And yeah, there's certainly been better, but there's also been worse. So yeah, it's kind of like in the it's not necessarily in the middle, but it's kind of like in the kind of getting there towards bit, it's good and I enjoy it and everything, but it's not one of my all-time favourites first stories for a new Doctor by any means. And so yeah, I mean, there's been about 15 of them now, or thereabout. So yeah, I would say I'd probably rank, if you would ask me like where exactly would I rank this, I'd probably rank this like solid 7. I think it's like in 7th place out of all 15 of them, which is like kind of round about the middle-ish, but not quite there. Like it's kind of in the top 10, but it's, you know what I mean, like hopefully there's kind of much better ones, I think, but there's also much worse stuff. So yeah, it's kind of getting towards the middle, but not quite. It's still kind of like good enough to be considered, well, good, in my opinion. Then we come on to Into the Dalek. Again, I'd probably say good for this. Like, no real complaints with this. I like the idea of the Doctor and co being kind of miniaturized and then sent right inside a Dalek. I think that's, very original kind of direction to take a Dalek story in. And I like the whole concept of Rusty and him kind of being a good Dalek, but also kind of not. And, the interactions he has with the 12th Doctor and how the 12th Doctor kind of gets a bit horrified, I think, because, this is very early on in his tenure where he's very kind of like unsure of who he is, basically. And, obviously he asks Clara at the beginning of the episode, like, am I a good man? And then he hears from Rusty, like, the fact that Rusty saw hatred inside of the Doctor's soul, or whatever. I mean, I think that spooks him quite a bit, and that's quite an interesting place to see the Doctor in, kind of, being spooked by his inner demons almost in a way, I suppose. Yeah, it's not one of my favorite Dalek stories, but again, it's fairly solid. It's just like Deep Breath, basically, in terms of where I'd rank it. You know, it's solidly getting towards the middle of of all the Dalek stories, but not, you know, still high enough to be considered pretty good, basically. Then we come to... Hold on a minute, I'm just trying to find it. Oh, there it is. It was literally right there and I couldn't see it for ages. Robot of Sherwood, again, I put this in good. Basically the same as the last two. I mean, I think, you know, Series 8 has kind of a good start, but it's nothing really kind of particularly stand out compared to like other series anyway. Like, it feels like there've been much better starts to series both before and after Series 8. But yeah, you know, it's still fairly solid. I like the kind of much more light-hearted aspects of Robot of Sherwood, even if it does kind of feel a bit strange with the direction they were taking 12th Doctor in at this point. So obviously this is in his very kind of dark, moody, kind of very, as I say, unsure of himself kind of days. And yeah, it is. I kind of understand what people mean when they say that it kind of feels a bit like a throwback to the Matt Smith era, or at least a more kind of light-hearted Doctor's era anyway. But I think that probably is quite good, I suppose, because then it shows Capaldi's range as an actor. And yeah, I just love all the bickering and bantering between the Doctor and Robin Hood throughout this. And yeah, I think it's pretty good. You know, again, it's not one of my favourite Doctor Who stories of all time, but it's, you know, not one of the worst either. Then we come on to Listen. I'm going to put this in great. I feel like, yeah, this is a step up, I think, from the previous few stories. Like, yeah, they're all in good, but I feel like this is just a bit more kind of interesting kind of premise. It kind of doesn't really go anywhere. It kind of, I suppose, like 73 Yards would later do, it kind of leaves you to make up your own mind, I suppose, on all of kind of what it's tackled and everything. And in terms of, you know, why do we always talk out loud in the dark and stuff like that, and whether there could be something hidden away in the dark or something like that. Yeah, I think, yeah, it's a really cool, really intriguing concept. Obviously, like, as I say, it doesn't give you any definitive answers, and some people might find that really frustrating to have spent like 45 to 50 minutes on this episode and its storyline, and then kind of not get a clear answer one way or another, kind of what was going on and what was the whole point of it. But I think that can be quite good sometimes. I wouldn't want Doctor Who to do that all the time, but I think it's good when it does do it. Both with this and with 73 Yards as well, because, you know, it challenges the audience. It kind of, you know, it's not just the same old Doctor Who story. It's trying to do something a bit different with the show, something a bit more kind of like thought-provoking, I suppose. It leaves you away thinking and trying to, I suppose, figure it out in your own way. And yeah, never kind of gives you a definitive answer one way or another, what was the case or what wasn't the case. I do think that the stuff where Clara, where the TARDIS is taken all the way back to the Doctor's barn when he was like a young boy, and then Clara ends up being the one that, again, like this whole thing with Clara, and this happened a lot in Series 7B, where Clara became really important. Like the whole universe revolved around her, and she became this really important part of the Doctor's life, and kind of was the one that, according to this episode anyway, um, was the person that kind of inspired the Doctor to become who he was, in a way, to become, who we know as the Doctor now. I don't know how I feel about that, because I don't know, it does kind of feel like taking the whole, again, this whole thing with the new series where the companions has to be really important, has to be the center of, the entire universe revolves around them. They're always the center of attention. They're always, got some mystery box type of character arc going on. Yeah, I don't know if it always needs to be the case. Apologies if you could just hear that. I think something might be playing up on the cable somewhere. But yeah. Then we've got Time Heist, which is here. Just meh, kind of. Don't love it, don't hate it. Just, yeah, kind of fun and stuff to just have on in the background, I suppose. I think Keely Hawes is very like wasted and underutilized in this episode. Like, I feel like she could have been given a much better character, I think, to play than I can't for the life of me remember her name, but yeah, yeah. But it's all right. It's just the typical kind of heist thing, basically. It's not really, this it tries to do a sort of Doctor Who twist on it, but I don't know. I don't know if it quite works as well as it perhaps wanted to. But then, it's not terrible by any means either. So yeah. The Caretaker, I'm gonna put this in there as well. Like, I kind of like it in terms of being, I suppose, more of a. Oops, sorry about that. Something just a few wires keep trying to come undone or something. I think might be because I'm moving or something. That sometimes happens. But yeah, with the Caretaker, like, I kind of like it's a bit more of a character piece. And kind of, explores. It's kind of very much about like Danny finding out about Clara's life with the Doctor, and then you've got this kind of. I quite like the Scovox Blitzer, like the look of it. I think it's a really terrific design. But yeah, again, it's not really doing anything. I don't know. It's not. It's not really anything special, but it's fine as it is, and I think it serves its purpose of, as I say, showing Danny coming to terms with Clara and the fact that she's lied to him for so long, and yeah, where that leaves them, I suppose, where it leaves their relationship. Yeah, it's fine. It's not anything too special. Then we come on to Kill the Moon, which I'm gonna have to put this in awful, just because I just don't like the whole idea of the moon being an alien egg. I just think it's just. I know Doctor Who can sometimes have daft ideas, and I'm not necessarily always against that as an idea overall, like Doctor Who being a bit daft, being a bit silly. But sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, basically. And in this case, I don't think it works well at all. It's just, yeah, I just don't know how to feel about it, because it's just so. Like, it's one of those things that is so bizarre and is so potentially, like, really could really potentially affect the show's canon and history, like, as a whole. But then just doesn't, and it's just never really brought up again. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's just, yeah, it feels like it's kind of, I don't know. I think the build up to finding out what's going on with the moon is not necessarily bad. It's just the fact that it turns out to be an alien egg, and it's just, I don't know. It's just weird. It's just bizarre. Like, what? Um, yeah. Then we come on to Mummy on the Orient Express. I'm gonna have to put this in GOAT. Really love this episode. Always have done. It's just brilliant. I think Capaldi's on top form here. Jenna Coleman is as well as Clara. I love Frank Perkins. Frank Skinner, sorry, as Perkins. Yeah, wish he'd been an actual proper companion. I would have loved that. But wasn't to be. But still, his scenes in this episode with the Doctor, I just love the fact that, he's someone who doesn't mind standing up to the Doctor, but then also kind of, fulfilling that companion role at the same time. Just real shame it wasn't made a companion. I just love the foretold and the whole kind of stuff going on with it, how it only gives people 66 seconds to live, all that kind of stuff. I think it's really just really interesting, really unique kind of stuff. And yeah, it's just great stuff, really. Then we come on to Flatline, which is, it's just there. I'm also going to put this in GOAT. I love the whole kind of, the main idea of this story where you've got creatures who are trying to kind of cross over from the world of like 2D all the way to, cables messing about again. I love the fact that, you've got these monsters who live within this kind of 2D dimension, and they're trying to come into the real world, our 3D dimension essentially. And they're kind of adapting to, kind of figuring out what 3D is like and how it all works, and then kind of, as the Doctor says, like dissecting, and just really creepy kind of stuff. And you've also got the stuff which is quite funny, where the TARDIS obviously keeps shrinking and getting smaller and smaller, whilst the Doctor's still inside it. And it's just great. It's like a really unique concept, and it's something which, I'm surprised it took Doctor Who as long as it did to kind of fully explore that. It's like the TARDIS getting shrunk, and then, all this 2D versus 3D kind of dimension stuff. I think it's just really, really clever stuff. Then we come on to In the Forest of the Night. I'm also going to put this in awful. I mean, I think the idea behind it is not necessarily bad, in terms of like the whole of London getting overgrown with trees and this great big forest and everything. I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea in of itself. I just think that the execution is just not the best. And then it turns out that it's literally just there to kind of protect the Earth from a solar flare or something like that. The science behind it doesn't really make much sense. I know it's Doctor Who and it's called science fiction for a reason, but it's just a bit bizarre again. And it doesn't feel like it was properly thought out, I think. No offense to the writer, of course, just that, it's just a bit of a weird one, really. I should also say that for most of these 12th Doctor episodes, I'm using the brilliant retro episode posters done by Stuart Manning, just purely because, I just really love them, and I thought, well, I may as well kind of use them just for a change, just instead of using like random screenshots or promotional images as I would with the other new series Doctors. or DVDs if there are any. Yeah. Anyway, so then we come on to Dark Water / Death in Heaven. I've just used the poster for Death in Heaven in this case. Yeah, put it in good. I enjoy it, but again, like all the others that I've put in good, it's just kind of, yeah, I enjoy it. It's a pretty decent finale. Pretty good way of wrapping up the whole Series 8 story arc with the Promised Land to an extent. Maybe that could have been done a bit better, but it's all right. And then kind of the whole stuff going on where Danny dies and then gets resurrected as a Cyberman, and obviously you get the reveal of Missy and who she is. It's got some really good moments in it. Certainly. I do think there are better finales out there, but there are definitely worse ones as well. So yeah, it's another one where it's kind of leaning towards the middle, but it's still in the higher end, if that makes any sense. Like, it's leaning towards the middle, but there's obviously like two ends either side of the middle bit. Obviously the top half and then the bottom half. I feel like this is still, just about in the top half of series finales that we've gotten. So, should I count Last Christmas as well? Yeah, I'll count Last Christmas as well. I'm gonna put this in great as well. I mean, I quite like this. I think I've got quite a soft spot for it in a way, because I like the whole idea of it in terms of like dreams within a dream within a dream, that kind of like very confusing, timey-wimey, typical Stephen Moffat kind of thing going on. And I just, kind of having Father Christmas or Santa Claus in Doctor Who is a bit daft, bit silly, but we have to remember that there's a lot of children that watch Doctor Who as well, so it kind of has to appeal to them in a way. And I would have loved this I think I would have really loved it if this had been Clara's last story. I know it was supposed to be, but then obviously Jenna Coleman decided she didn't want to leave just yet. She wanted to stay on for Series 9. But I think this would have been a really good way for Clara to leave. Not to say that the exit she got wasn't good. I mean, it was still mostly pretty good. But yeah, it would have been like really great to see. Well, it would have been sad, obviously, to see her leave, but it would have made for a really powerful moment, I think, in Last Christmas. And it's a shame we didn't get that, but yeah, it's still pretty good even without that. Obviously, there was supposed to be Shona. It was supposed to replace Clara in Series 9. I would have loved it if she had done, but again, it unfortunately just didn't happen, which is a real shame. So yeah, that's pretty much it for Series 8, really. So now on to Series 9. Right, so now on to Series 9. So The Magician's Apprentice / The Witch's Familiar. Again, I'm just using the one poster for this two-parter. I'm going to put this in good. I do enjoy it, but I just feel like it's much stronger series openers, I suppose. I mean, it's enjoyable enough. I like the idea behind Colony South and the whole kind of thing going on with Davros, where the 12th Doctor finds himself like face to face with Davros as a boy. I think, and that whole kind of moral conundrum that he has to face. That's really interesting, really intriguing stuff. Kind of really good dramatic stuff. But yeah, the Doctor riding in on the tank playing the guitar. It's kind of a bit silly, but then you know. It does feel like a drastic departure from what we saw the 12th Doctor being like in the last series. But then I think it suits kind of what they tried to do with him in series 9 quite well. It kind of sets that up quite well. And yeah, it kind of makes sense, I suppose, because the Doctor is supposedly facing, death, because he knows, he's seen his confession dial and everything. So it makes sense that he would kind of loosen up a bit, towards what he thinks is the end for him, even if obviously it turns out it's not the case. And yeah, it's interesting how they try to make up for the fact that it didn't have as many old Dalek designs in Asylum of the Daleks by putting like loads of them in this story, when it doesn't really make much sense for them to do that. It would have made much more sense if they just stuck to that for Asylum. But yeah, at least they made up for it, I suppose. That's something. Then we come to Under Lake / Before the Floods. I'm gonna put this in GOAT. I don't know why, but again, this is just one that I've always loved, and still do. Yeah, I do think the first half is probably the strongest of the 2 episodes. Before the Floods, I feel like it does then become much more about obviously the bootstrap paradox, and yeah, again gets very kind of timey-wimey, typical Stephen Moffat kind of paradoxes and stuff like that. But it does work well in this instance, I feel. And yeah, it's just kind of, it's typical Doctor Who base Under Siege kind of story, but with a interesting enough kind of supposed twist in the form of the ghosts, and what's going on with the Fish King and everything. And yeah, it's kind of pretty good. There's a pretty good cast of guest characters as well, and yeah, the whole thing is just brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and very atmospheric, very creepy, very dark, very eerie. Yeah, just brilliant. Then we come to The Girl Who Died. I'll probably, I think I will put it in Meh, just because I don't mind the Ashilda stuff, but then I don't really kind of love it either. I feel like they could have done a better job with her, but this episode is probably the better of the 2 Ashilda kind of loosely connected episodes. Some good laughs going on with the band of originally pretty useless Viking farmers that the Doctor has to recruit to try and defeat the Maya. Yeah, great comedic stuff going on there with Capaldi. And Maisie Williams does a good job with Ashilda, don't get me wrong. And the Maya, quite a interesting, if very underused kind of monster or villain. But yeah, I just feel like there's just better stuff out there. Same with The Woman Who Lived, really. I'd probably, in fact, no, I'll put The Girl Who Died in good, because as I say, I think it's the better one of the 2, and The Woman Who Lived just in meh. Like, again, I don't hate it, and I do kind of enjoy it mostly, but it's not really anything too special, I suppose, and nothing that really stands out to me as like extremely memorable, apart from the fact that it's got Ruthless Hound in it, who obviously will go on to play the meddling monk for Big Finish. It's got that weird kind of lion-like alien that Ashilda, or Lady Me, I should say, allies herself with. which does look like a character out of like Thundercats or something. Um, yeah, but meh, it is what it is. Then we come on to Zygon invasion slash Zygon inversion. I think that's right. Don't know. It's I think it's that way around. Good. It's solid two-parter. There's not much to say. I feel like it gives Jenna Coleman clearly enjoys, I think, playing Bonnie, basically like a sort of, well, she basically is like Clara's darker side or more evil side. I think she does a pretty good job with that. I think, it's kind of, I do like the idea of the story in concept in terms of like seeing, because obviously in Day of the Doctor, we saw the Doctors forcing the humans and Zygons to make a sort of truce and try to coexist with each other, but we never really got to see like the consequences of that and what happened next. So I think it's good to see what happens next after that. But I think the real kind of standout moment of the whole two-part story is the Doctor's speech, which obviously, like everyone since it aired basically nearly 10 years ago now has gushed about and said how brilliant Capaldi was in that and how much of a great job he did with it. And he did a brilliant job with it and just showed so much raw kind of passion and emotion and just really, I think, made something, really memorable out of this two-parter, which I think otherwise I kind of might have forgotten it a bit more, mostly. Hats off to Peter Capaldi. Then Sleep No More, awful. I think the idea of Doctor doing a found footage episode as a concept is really good. But I just don't think the execution is quite right. And then, I don't know, it just kind of feels like it doesn't truly go anywhere, at least in terms of like what it could have done. Kind of see what Mark Gatiss is trying to do with this one, but I just don't think it's quite there. And I feel like the ending is very abrupt because I'm pretty sure they end with the Doctor wanting to go to not to Neptune, but to like I think it might be Brighton or whatever, like one of the moons, or the home kind of base for the Morpheus Morpheus organization. But then we kind of never really get to see what happens after that. Maybe this, I don't know, maybe Mark Gatiss was planning on this being a two-parter, but then it just wasn't, or whatever. I know he wanted to do a sequel to this story, series 10. I'm kind of glad he didn't really, because I'm not really massively fussed about revisiting this stuff going on with the Sandmen and Morpheus and Reese Shearsmith's character anytime soon. Then we come to Face the Raven. Great. I think it's just, in fact, no, would I put it in GOAT? Yeah, no, I would actually. Yeah, GOAT. I think it's really good. There's a real tragic kind of ending for Clara. I know it's only temporary, but at the time it was really like a big deal. Like, they've actually killed her off, sort of thing. And it was really just tragic and awful way for her to go. But then it felt kind of right with the whole kind of build up to her kind of character arc for Series 9, where she becomes a lot more like the Doctor, starts to take inspiration from him, starts to take more and more risks, starts to get a bit too cocky, I think, for her own good. And then how that all kind of comes to this moment with the Raven, and it feels like a great kind of character arc, essentially, and a great way to kind of write a companion out. But obviously, it's not quite the end for Clara, um, which kind of lessens the impact, I think, of this episode now. But yeah, at the time when it aired, it was just really depressing, but really good drama and just sensational stuff, basically. Um, Continuing with that, we have Heaven Sent, which is literally just brilliant. I think it's yeah. Just what can I say other than it's literally just Peter Capaldi's like TED Talks or masterclass on how to act and how to give a award-winning, like a potentially an award-winning performance. Like it's worthy of an award. I don't think he got an award for it, which is a real shame because I think he should have done, because he basically carries this entire episode. It's like 65 minutes long, short, just solely by himself, pretty much. And there's a bit of Jenna Coleman as Clara, and then there's obviously the veil and everything, but that's pretty much it. It's mainly just Peter Capaldi's 12th Doctor doing endless monologues and speeches and everything, and yeah, just getting to see his whole kind of thought process, and it's just brilliant. And it's also just deals with grief and everything so well, I think. Yeah, because obviously this is set right after Face the Raven, when the 12th Doctor's just seen Clara die so like gruesomely, and so just it's so depressing and so sad, and you just get a real sense of just how angry and how vengeful he is to find out, who are the people responsible for her death, who are the people behind it all, and how he wants to get his revenge on them, basically. And yeah, it's just phenomenal, acting from Capaldi. Just shows why, in my opinion, he is one of the best actors to have ever played the parts. And, even though at the time I didn't think much of his era, now he has actually become one of my favourites. And Heaven Sent is a good explanation as to why, because he's just great in it, really. And then we come to Hellbent, which I'm going to put in meh. When it first aired, I would have put it in awful, because I was just so disappointed with this episode at the time. Now, like nearly 10 years on, it's still disappointing. I feel like there was a lot of potential, a lot of high kind of anticipation going into this, and then I don't think it really lives up to it, which is a real shame, because, as I say, just with Heaven Sent and Face the Raven, like what those two episodes had established, with Doctor being grief-stricken and really vengeful, and then Clara's death and everything, I feel like it was really set up to be like a truly epic finale, one for the ages, and then it just falls apart, basically. But my opinion on it has kind of softened over time, and kind of, whereas when I first watched it, I absolutely despised it, thought it was one of the worst episodes ever made. Now I just kind of think, well, it's not great. It's not a great finale, but it is what it is, and there are some aspects to it that I like. Yeah, I just don't like the whole Clara getting her own TARDIS, her own companion. I just feel, and just always being like stuck in that few seconds before death kind of thing. I kind of get that Moffat probably just doesn't want to kill companions off, and that's completely fair enough. But yeah, or at least not properly anyway. But yeah, it just it wasn't what I was expecting, and I don't think it was what a lot of people were expecting and hoping for. Which is a shame, but there's still stuff to like with it, and the whole kind of stuff going on with the hybrids, that kind of doesn't really get kind of properly resolved. I think again it's kind of left open to interpretation a bit, although it's heavily implied. I think that it's basically to do with the Doctor and Clara themselves and their relationship with each other and everything. Which, yeah, I wish had been made maybe a bit more explicit in the episode, but if that is the case, if that's what Moffat, was intending with it, and it seems to be what he was intending with it, based on what little, I could gather, then yeah, fair enough. But yeah, I suppose the fact that, again, it's one of those things where not everyone's going to like the fact that, not everything is completely 100% spelled out to the audience. Like, not everything is wrapped up quite as satisfactorily as some people would like. It's not all wrapped up in a nice, neat little bow. It's left somewhat open to interpretation a bit, but heavily kind of leaning towards one angle, I would argue. But yeah. And then the Husbands of River song, I'll just put it in there as well. Like, I think it's fine. It's just an enjoyable romp. I think throughout most of it, it's just a bit of festive fun. I do think the whole fact that River Song spends the majority of the episodes not recognizing the Doctor, I mean, it's funny at first, and it does make sense. It's just, I wish maybe it had not gone on for as long as it does. And, there'd been some kind of resolution to it. The resolution to it had just come a bit sooner, I think. Yeah, it's mostly a typical Doctor Who Christmas special, just a bit of festive fun to just put on in the background, after, whilst you're doing the Christmas watching up or whatever. Which is fine, a lot of Christmas specials like that, and fair play to them. You may as well kind of be like that at times in order to kind of cater to as many people as possible, because there tends to be a lot of people that will watch the show at Christmas, a lot more than usual kind of thing, or at least that used to be the case anyway. But yeah, the final few minutes where you've got the 12th Doctor and River at the Singing Towers of Darillium, that's just beautifully done. Really kind of, we come full circle pretty much with with River Song's story and almost with the Moffat era, I suppose, or at least with Stephen Moffat's time writing the show and being involved so heavily with the show. And yeah, it just kind of sets things up very well for what then happens to River in Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead. Yeah, again, kudos to Peter Capaldi and Alex Kingston for just acting their socks off in those final few minutes and just really giving terrific and very emotionally powerful performances. And yeah, that's it for Series 9. So now on to Series 10. I just want to say, I think it might have been recording the wrong microphone for the Series 9 section, which might have been why it sounded a bit different to this and Series 8. So I do apologise about that. I didn't know until after I'd done it and then had a quick listen through it all and realised, hold on a minute, it sounds a bit different. So yeah, do apologise for that. But there you go, that's probably what all that cable stuff was earlier on. So yeah, the Return of Dr. Mysterio, I'm gonna put this in meh. Like, I just don't hate it, but I just feel like it's kind of just mostly a generic kind of superhero story, and it feels a bit weird to be having a superhero in Doctor Who at all. But then, at least it's not something the show has done before. So yeah. Yeah, I just feel like it's very clearly riffing off Superman and, just various superhero films, basically. It doesn't really feel like it offers anything necessarily new to that genre, but then, there are some good moments, particularly, I think, towards the end when Capaldi gives that little speech where he says, "Look, everything ends," and it feels really quite sad. Like, you can tell how much losing both Clara and River has affected the 12th Doctor, and also with Clara, the fact that he can't even remember what she looked like anymore, and, with River knowing that she has to go off and, meet her fate. Like, yes, she's saved by the library, thanks to the 10th Doctor, but she's still basically dead, really, and yeah, you can tell how much that's affecting him. And you kind of feel glad that he's got Matt Lucas's Nardole kind of there to kind of look after him, or at least kind of, when they're not bickering and arguing a little bit. Yeah, as a superhero story, it's very generic, but there's some nice moments in it at least. Then we come to the pilot. I'm going to put this in good. I think, yeah, this is a pretty solid start to Series 10, like proper start to Series 10. Again, I think there've been better series openers, but there've also been way worse ones, so, I think Bill is introduced pretty well, and I like the whole kind of thing that goes on between her and Heather, the puddle girl, and yeah, it's nice to see like the Daleks kind of briefly show up, and obviously get the return of the Movellans as well. That was quite like a surprise at the time. Yeah, you can tell that bit was very much for fan service, but I'm a massive Doctor Who nerd anyway, so like obviously that I'm gonna kind of enjoy that kind of thing anyway, even if it does come across as very, very fan servicey and very much there just for the sake of appeasing the fans and making us happy or whatever. Yeah, but it's fine. It's a pretty good introduction for Bill. It's not one of the best companion introductions, but it is by no means the worst either. And yeah, it's a solid enough start to her. And honestly, I love Bill. I think she's great. I wish we'd have seen more of her and Nardole together with the 12th Doctor. I definitely prefer them over Clara, I'm sorry to say. I wish we'd have seen far more of Bill and Nardole, but it wasn't to be, sadly. Then we come to Smile. Meh. Don't really feel that strongly about this episode either way. Like, I enjoy it for the most part. It's kind of, it does that kind of thing of, like it's set in a place that looks all sunny and happy and, really bright and everything. And then obviously there's quite a darker kind of really awful sides to it, where the emoji bots have been basically killing the human colonists because they've been unhappy, and they don't really know how to interpret that very well, because they're just machines, and the Vardis as a whole have been programmed to make sure that the colonists stay happy, and then when they don't, then they think they've had a malfunction or something, I believe. Yeah, and then the whole kind of emoji bots themselves, they are a bit gimmicky, yes, but they're fine. Yeah, it's fine. I think it's just there, I suppose, to kind of go, oh look, we're doing robots that have emojis as faces now in Doctor Who, and then also to give Bill that first trip in the TARDIS, first proper trip in the TARDIS and to the future, and also just to kind of further flesh out her relationship with the Doctor. And, in that case, yeah, it does a pretty good job of that. Then we come on to Thin Ice again. Well, no, I put this in good, actually. Like, yeah, the better stuff out there, but I do enjoy it. I love the bit where the Doctor just punches Lord Sutcliffe in the face after he's been really racist to Bill. But yeah, it does kind of feel like by this point in Doctor Who, I feel like we'd had quite a lot of monsters turning out to actually be good, or at least not as evil as we, initially thought they were going to be. And I feel like that's kind of been done quite a lot in a new series by this point. And I don't know, it just feels like, I don't know, it feels like they're trying to say, oh, look, this is a nice twist, isn't it? But then we've had it done so many times in so many other stories up until now that it's not really a nice twist. It's kind of just like, oh, okay. It's going to be one of those episodes, is it? But yeah, it's pretty good. I think it's great, going back again into history with the whole Frost Fair. In Victorian London, or Georgian or Regency era London, I should say. Yeah. And again, it's just about fleshing out further the Doctor's relationship with Bill, and Bill kind of getting to find out more about the Doctor and who he is, and the choices he's had to make over the years. And yeah, it kind of leads to a bit of friction between the two of them for a while, but then obviously they kind of resolve it. Yeah. Then we come to Knock Knock. I'm going to put this in great. It's just great. I mean, again, it's quite eerie and quite scary in a way, and I feel like the Capaldi era does that quite well, I think, with a lot of its episodes where, it's kind of, it just does its kind of scare factors quite well, I think. This one, obviously you've kind of got David Suchet as the landlord, and he's very kind of like, again, he's kind of got, it's not necessarily that thing of where villain is actually turns out to be good, but it's kind of that thing of, like, you're able to kind of sympathize with him a little. And yeah, again, it's something which you could argue maybe the new series has done a bit too much of, but then I don't necessarily think it's bad how it's done here. And then the woodlice, or whatever, the Doctor calls them something else, but I can't for the life of me remember what it is. But yeah, they're pretty good. And yeah, just that whole kind of, again, it's just great. It's like typical Doctor Who kind of stuff of being set in this haunted house and it's all creaking and stuff, and then you find out, it's being overrun by and infested by these it's not druids, I can't remember, but woodlice kind of creatures. And yeah, it's just really quite horrific stuff. I think we've seen them all, crawling about the place and everything, crawling all through the walls and doors and everything. And yeah, how the flatmates all kind of get sucked into the building itself and become part of the building. That's really creepy, really terrifying. Yeah, it's not one of Capaldi's, like, obviously it's not made it all the way to greatest of all time, but it's getting there. Certainly, it's not too far away from there. Yeah, but one that is definitely a goat is Oxygen. The next episode, which, yeah, I just love. Doctor Who gets extremely political, extremely anti-capitalist, and whatever, and yeah, it's just very scathing of that whole system, and kind of, yeah, again, quite, it's got that scare factor to it again. We got the um suit zombies, I suppose, or whatever they are. Yeah, just really quite scary stuff and just brilliantly done. Real proper, like, very, very political stuff. But personally, I really like that. I know it's not for everyone, but I really like it. And yeah, why not, basically? Yeah. Then we come to Extremis, which I'm going to put in great. Yeah, it's kind of that whole kind of Matrix thing going on. And again, it's like a typical Moffat thing where it turns out that it's not the real world, it's just a simulation sort of thing. Um, but yeah, it's just so brilliantly done anyway. Like, yeah, it does feel like a bit of a cliche by this point with Moffat's writing, but then it's just so well done that who cares really? It's just great. Like, you just get this sense of the stakes are really high, I think, with the monks, and it's a shame kind of how this whole loosely connected monk trilogy ends up turning out and gets resolved. But yeah, at least in this episode, they're really good, really quite, yeah, just brilliant stuff. And then we come to Pyramid at the End of the World. Good, a bit of a step down, I think, from Extremis, but still pretty solid episode. Yeah, again, it's kind of obviously now we've kind of explored that shadow world or Matrix like simulation thing with Extremis, and now Pyramid at the End of the World sees the real Dr. Bill, Nardole, etc. actually go up against the monks. And yeah, it's pretty tense stuff with the whole pyramid, and you know, you've got the three biggest armies of the entire world, American, Chinese, and Russian, all right there, trying to throw all sorts of stuff at it, and nothing's working. And then, you know, kind of the whole thing with the monks, where it's quite interesting in terms of villains, where you know, they do invade, but they invade it when they're asked to. Basically, they invade planets when they've got permission or consent, almost. Yeah, that's quite an interesting sort of twist or spin on the usual kind of monsters invading Earth kind of trope that Doctor Who has. I think it's done pretty well, and then the ending, obviously, where Bill decides to make the ultimate decision to give the Doctor back his sight, and then basically hands the entire Earth to the monks. And yeah, it's just a real like, oh my god, like moment at the end, and really great cliffhanger to lead into the next episode, Live Land, which I don't know, I don't think it really kind of lives up to what the previous two episodes were doing, but it could have resolved it a lot better, I think. And yeah, it just kind of feels like it's a bit too easy almost for the monks to be defeated. And yeah, I would have loved to have seen more of kind of what life was like under the monks' control of Earth, and what it was like for ordinary people, how Bill and Nardole coped with it. And you know, I'm glad that the 12th Doctor, it turns out, you know, hasn't gone bad, but it might have been interesting if he had have done, actually, to then see, well, crikey, where does that leave Bill and Nardole now, you know, in terms of a dramatic kind of tense moment. It would have been really fascinating to see that play out. But obviously, the Doctor's a Doctor, so I'm glad it didn't happen in a way. But yeah, it could have resolved it all a lot better, and it does kind of feel like it's been a bit wasted, I think, with the Monk trilogy. Like, there could have been a much better resolution to it all, but yeah, it is what it is. Then we come on to World Enough in Time / Doctor Falls. Goat, yeah, just brilliant. World Enough in Time especially. Just love it. Really, again, that scare factor, really creepy, really dark. And it shows, what it's really like when someone gets converted into a Cyberman, and it explores the whole body horror aspect of it all, but also the really sad, tragic side of it. Like, this is, people are not turning themselves into Cybermen just willy-nilly, just for the sake of it. They're doing it because they feel like they have no other choice. They have to survive, and they can't survive in their current flesh and blood form. They have to convert themselves into these soulless, machine-like creatures. And yeah, it's just so tragic. And then obviously the Doctor Falls is basically, again, it's more or less the proper regeneration story for Capaldi. Like, obviously it technically isn't, but it basically is Capaldi's final hurrah, and his final battle pretty much, and it's just epic. Obviously you've got the return of John Sim as the Master alongside Missy, so you've got two Masters there, and it's interesting to see kind of the similarities and differences between the two of them, and how Missy ends up wanting to side with the Doctor towards the end of the Doctor Falls, but then the Master shoots her in the back. And yeah, then we're left for ages thinking, oh, is that it for the Master as a whole? Like, obviously it wasn't, but at the time, I think for a good few years, that's what we thought. Yeah, it's just so emotionally charged, so emotionally just real emotional oomph all the way through it, I think. And it's just so sad, so tragic what happens with Bill, obviously, getting converted into Cyberman. Can't believe I forgot about that. Like, yeah, it's just awful. Just really awful stuff. Yeah, she does get that whole kind of happily ever after ending where she becomes a puddle and then goes off with Heather to become puddles, somehow flying about through the universe and whatever. But yeah, it's still very powerful stuff going on with her being converted into a Cyberman. And then lastly, one to Twice Upon a Time, which I will put in there, but solely because of the way the First Doctor is treated in this, and the fact that he's given these really sexist lines and everything, and it's just I kind of get what Stephen Moffat was trying to do, I suppose, by kind of not just giving people a bit of cheap kind of like comedic relief, but also trying to show how far the Doctor's come as a character. But I feel like you could have done that in a way without resorting to such jokes. And yeah, it just feels massively out of character for the First Doctor. Like, I know William Hartnell himself is no saint, and he could be quite an unpleasant individual, according to those who worked on the show. Well, some of those who worked on the show with him. But then, like, I don't feel like that should then be replicated with the First Doctor himself as a character. Like, the First Doctor overall himself was never really that unpleasant to anyone, regardless of gender or race or whatever it might be. The First Doctor wasn't really like that. But yeah, then I quite like the whole recreation of the 10th planet scenes. Wish we would have seen more of them, because I know... Oh, sorry, some cable stuff going on again. I know that they did film a lot of scene recreations for the 10th planet that then just ended up not getting used, sadly, in the final edit. And I don't think we've ever seen them included on like a DVD or Blu-ray or anything, which is a real shame. But I love the whole attention to detail and the fact that they went to trouble of casting Ben and Polly. They brought they recreated as best they could the First Doctor's like police box, TARDIS exterior. You've also got, they use the same Mondasian Cybermen costumes as they did literally in the previous story, which is a bit kind of inaccurate, but you know, it's fine, understandable. And I just love the whole fact that you know, it's kind of a coda, I think, to Capaldi's era, to what was going on with World Enough in Time and Doctor Falls, and how, you know, there's a bit of it where it's set in the 1914 Christmas truce, and how, yeah, I feel like that is something that I'm very glad, you know, Doctor Who finally covered. It always felt weird as the Doctor Who had not covered that, like quite a noteworthy point in history, when soldiers in the middle of all this blood and mud and wire and, you know, all that kind of stuff, just stood down and just put down their weapons and pretended they were all best mates and played football with each other and everything. Yeah, really glad the Doctor did that, and I think it's beautifully done in the few minutes of Twice Upon a Time that we see. I like Mark Gatiss' character, the Brigadier's grandfather, I think he is, or great-grandfather, whatever. Yeah, just very good. Nice, kind of subdued, mellowed kind of finish to Capaldi's era, basically. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this 12th Doctor TV story ranking. I hope you liked it. Please don't forget to press that subscribe button below, as well as press the bell icon at the side of it, so that you'll stay notified of when all my new videos come out. Apologies if you just heard that motorbike going past. And yeah, next time I'll be doing the 13th Doctor's TV stories and ranking all of those. And so yeah, I'll see you all then. So till the next time, bye bye.